The alarm clock on my nightstand blared like it always had in my memories, but when I opened my eyes, the room wasn't my cramped Chicago apartment. It was my old bedroom in suburban Ohio, the one I'd left behind 15 years ago. My heart slammed against my ribs as I sat up, staring at the faded band posters and the high school backpack slumped in the corner, realizing with a jolt that I wasn't 32 anymore. I was 17 back in senior year, and the face in a mirror across the room was the teenage version of myself I tried so hard to forget. Everything felt too sharp, too real. The worn carpet under my bare feet, the smell of Mom's coffee drifting up the stairs, the distant rumble of the school bus turning onto our street. I stumbled to the window and pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Lincoln High sprawled in the distance, its brick walls glowing under the September sun, and my stomach twisted. This wasn't a dream. I crashed my car on a rainy Chicago highway 2 nights ago, or at least that's what I remembered from my adult life. Now I was here, 18 again, with every regret, every secret, every unsaid word from the future burning in my chest. Downstairs, Dad sat at the kitchen table in his factory uniform, newspaper open to the sports section. "Morning, Alex. You look like you saw a ghost. Better eat something before the bus." Mom slid a plate of eggs toward me, her smile warm but tired from another double shift at the hospital. They were the same as I remembered: good, hardworking people who went to church every Sunday and believed life had clear rules. Rules that didn't leave room for what I was about to feel again. I forced down a few bites, my mind racing. In the future I'd built after college, I'd kept everything hidden. The quiet job in marketing, the string of safe but empty relationships, the nights I lay awake wondering what if. And always at the center of those what ifs was Jake Harlan, my best friend since middle school. The soccer captain with the easy laugh and the kind eyes that never judged me when I stumbled. In my original timeline, I'd watched him date girls, get the scholarship, marry his college sweetheart, and drift away while I smiled and pretended it didn't tear me apart. Now I had a chance to change it, or ruin everything. The bus ride was a blur of familiar faces. Mia slid into the seat beside me, her curly hair tied back with the same scrunchie she'd worn for years. "You okay? You look like you're about to puke." I managed a laugh. Just senior year jitters. But inside, the panic built. How do you act normal when you know how every choice ends? Lincoln High buzzed with the usual energy, lockers slamming, laughter echoing, the scent of fresh-cut grass from the practice fields. I kept my head down until I reached my locker, and there he was. Jake leaned against the wall a few feet away, talking to the soccer team, his blonde hair catching the light, Letterman jacket slung over one shoulder. He turned, spotted me, and grinned that same grin that used to make my chest ache. "Alex, missed you at practice yesterday, man. You coming to the game Friday?" The day passed in a haze of classes and half-remembered conversations. In English, Mrs. Patel announced partner projects on The Great Gatsby. When she paired me with Jake, the room spun again. He clapped me on the shoulder after class. "Library after school? We got this." I nodded, throat tight. Hours later, sitting across from him at a quiet table, I watched him flip through notes, brow furrowed in concentration. He wasn't the shallow jock everyone assumed. He talked about dreams beyond soccer, about wanting more than small-town expectations. For a moment, the wall between us felt paper-thin. By the time I got home that night, my hands shook as I closed my bedroom door. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. This second chance came with a price. Every laugh, every shared look, every choice could either bring us closer or destroy the friendship that had kept me going in both lives. I whispered into the dark. "What am I supposed to do now?" Sleep didn't come easy. The next few days blurred into a rhythm I thought I'd forgotten. Mornings started with Dad's lectures about college applications and making something of yourself, while Mom packed lunches with the same quiet care she'd always shown. At school, Jake and I fell into the project like old times, but everything felt different now. I knew how his laugh sounded at 25, how his voice cracked when he talked about his dad's expectations. Those memories made every conversation dangerous. We met in the library again after practice. Jake dropped his bag, hair still damp from the showers, and slid into the chair across from me. "Okay, Rivera, Hit me with your Gatsby theories. You always see stuff I miss. His knee brushed mine under the table, accidental, but my pulse spiked. In my old life, I'd have pulled away without thinking. Now I sat frozen, terrified he'd noticed the way my hand trembled on the notebook. We talked for hours. He opened up about the pressure to get the Division I scholarship, about how his dad pushed him harder than anyone knew. Sometimes I wonder what I'd do if soccer wasn't the plan, he said quietly, eyes on the book. Like, what if I just wanted to coach kids, or something normal? I wanted to tell him it was okay, that the future didn't have to look like everyone expected. Instead, I said, you'd be great at whatever you chose. The words hung between us, heavier than they should have been. Mia cornered me at lunch the next day. You're acting weird around Jake. Like, extra quiet. Did you guys fight? I shook my head, just stressed. She didn't buy it, but she let it go. That afternoon, during soccer practice on the sidelines where I usually helped with stats for the paper, Jake waved me over. Come kick a few with us. You used to be decent. I laughed and joined, the ball feeling familiar under my foot. For 20 minutes, the world narrowed to grass, sweat, and Jake's encouraging shouts. When he high-fived me after a good pass, his hand lingered a second longer than necessary. Or maybe I imagined it. Home brought its own storm. Dad flipped through college brochures at dinner. State has a good business program. Solid future. Mom nodded along, but her eyes were kind. I knew from a future how this conversation ended. Me choosing a safe path, never telling them the truth about who I was. Tonight the words almost slipped out. Instead I said, I'm thinking about it. Later, alone in my room, I pulled out an old photo from my drawer. Jake and me at 14, arms around each other's shoulders at summer camp. The smile on my face in that picture hurt now. I had loved him even then. The project deadline loomed, and our meetings grew longer. One evening, as the library lights dimmed, Jake leaned back and sighed. Thanks for doing this with me, Alex. Most guys on the team wouldn't get it. His voice was soft, almost vulnerable. I met his eyes and felt the pull stronger than ever. This was the guy I'd watched marry someone else in my first life. Now he sat here, trusting me, and all I wanted was to reach across the table and tell him everything. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not when one wrong word could shatter the only friendship that had ever felt like home. That night, I lay awake replaying every moment. The feelings weren't new. They were older than this second chance. They were the reason I'd run to Chicago in the first place. Now they were here again, demanding I choose. Mid-October brought the first real test. Homecoming week turned the school into a whirlwind of posters and pep rallies. Jake asked me to help with the soccer team's float, and I said yes before I could think. We worked late in the gym, painting banners under string lights. He was in his element, joking with teammates, but when they left he stayed behind. You don't have to stay, man. I know you're not exactly the pep rally type. I shrugged. Figured you could use the help. We painted in comfortable silence until he set the brush down. Can I ask you something? You've been different lately. Like you're carrying something heavy. His blue eyes searched mine, and for a second I considered telling him the truth, the accident, the future, the way my heart had always leaned toward him. Instead I said, senior year stuff. You know how it is. He nodded, but the doubt lingered. The homecoming game arrived under bright Friday lights. I sat in the stand with Mia, watching Jake dominate the field. When he scored the winning goal, the crowd erupted. After the game, he found me on the sidelines, still in his uniform, sweat and grass stains making him look invincible. Thanks for coming, he said, pulling me into a quick hug. The contact lasted longer than any before, his hand pressing my back. My breath caught. When he pulled away, his smile was softer. Means a lot. Monday brought the rumor. Someone had seen us at the library. Heads close over notes, and whispers started. Rivera and Harlan? No way. Mia pulled me aside. People are talking. You know how this town is. I brushed it off, but inside panic bloomed. Jake found me at lunch, jaw tight. Ignore them. They're idiots. His defense felt like a lifeline, but it also made the secret heavier. At home, Dad caught the tail end of a phone call from a teammate teasing Jake about hanging with the quiet kid. He didn't say anything, but his frown spoke volumes. That night, I sat on the porch, staring at the stars. The future I'd lived taught me hiding was safer. This second chance was teaching me how much it cost. Our project presentation went perfectly the next week. Mrs. Patel praised our insights, and Jake clapped me on the back afterward. We make a good team. The words echoed in my head all the way home. Team. Friend. The labels felt too small for what I felt. Thanksgiving break brought a temporary escape. Jake invited me to his family's cabin for the weekend, something we'd done as kids. His parents welcomed me like always, but I noticed the careful distance they kept from town talk. We hiked the woods behind the cabin, leaves crunching under our boots. Jake stopped at the overlook. Remember when we used to talk about leaving this place? I nodded. Still do. He turned to me. Sometimes I think about what life would be like without all the pressure. No scholarship expectations, no perfect image. His voice cracked just enough to break my heart. I wanted to say I understood, that I'd lived the version where he followed the script and still felt empty. Instead, I said, "You don't have to be perfect, Jake." He looked at me then, really looked, and the air between us shifted. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled. "You're the only one who ever says that." Back at school after break, the rumors grew louder. Someone spray-painted something ugly on my locker. Jake was furious, helping me clean it off before anyone saw. "This is bullshit," he muttered. That afternoon, he skipped practice to sit with me in the empty bleachers. Whatever people say, I'm not going anywhere. His hand rested on my shoulder, warm and steady. The touch lingered, and I felt the line we'd been dancing around grow thinner. Christmas brought family dinners and church services where the pastor talked about God's plan for men and women. Dad nodded along while I stared at the floor. Jake texted me late one night. "Can't sleep. Thinking about next year." I replied, "Me too." The messages felt like lifelines. New Year's Eve, we watched the ball drop at his house. His parents were out, and we sat on the couch with sodas. At midnight, he turned to me. "Glad you're here, Alex." The way he said it made my chest ache with hope and fear. Spring brought college decisions. Jake got a scholarship offer. I got accepted to the state school. We celebrated with pizza at his house, but the mood shifted when his dad made a comment about real men sticking to the plan. Jake's face tightened. Later, he walked me home in the cool night air. Sometimes I wonder if any of this is worth it. I stopped under a streetlight. "You deserve to be happy, Jake. Whatever that looks like." The betrayal came 2 weeks later. A teammate overheard us talking and spread a rumor that Jake and I were more than friends. The soccer team turned cold. Jake's dad demanded explanations. At school, whispers followed us both. Jake confronted the guy who'd started it in the parking lot, voice shaking with anger. "Leave him alone." That night, he showed up at my door, eyes red. "I don't care what they say. You're my best friend." But I saw the fear in his eyes, fear of losing everything he'd worked for. I made the choice then. During a team meeting, I stood up and said the rumors were my fault, that I was the one who needed to figure things out. Jake tried to stop me, but I walked out. The sacrifice hurt, but it protected him. Or so I thought. College acceptance letters arrived. We both chose the same school, a decision that felt like fate. But the distance between us grew as rumors followed us to senior prom. Jake asked me to go as friends. We danced once, slow and careful, his hand on my waist feeling like the only real thing in the world. Graduation day arrived under a clear blue sky. Caps flew, families cheered, and Jake pulled me aside behind the bleachers. "I know you've been carrying something," he said quietly. "Whatever it is, I'm here. Always have been." The words broke something open inside me. I told him everything, not the time travel, but the feelings I'd hidden for years. He listened without interrupting, then took my hand. "I think I've been feeling it too. Just didn't know how to say it." The summer before college was quiet. We spent long evenings on the soccer field, talking about futures that no longer felt scripted. His family struggled at first, but Jake stood firm. Mine asked questions I answered honestly for the first time. The road wasn't easy. Misunderstandings lingered, old prejudices surfaced, but every step forward felt like growth. At college, sharing a dorm room, we built something new. Not perfect, but real. One evening on the campus lawn at golden hour, Jake turned to me with the same smile that had started it all. "I'm glad I got this chance with you." I pulled him into an embrace, the kind that said everything words couldn't. The feelings that had once terrified me now grounded me. Looking back, the second chance hadn't erased the pain. It had taught me to face it. Love wasn't about changing the past. It was about choosing honesty in the present. Was it right to risk everything for a love society said was wrong, or wrong to hide who you truly are forever? True or false?